This is the Keystone 3 Pro. And if you've been stuck in the wired generation of hardware wallets, forever fumbling around with cables and adapters, holding them at just the right angle just to keep the thing powered on, just so you can use your crypto, well then, this beauty might just welcome you into the future of cold wallet UX. Shall we? First things first, let's start with what it will cost you. And for a hardware wallet that's easily one of the most usable experiences I've ever had, 149 USD is actually super competitive. For this price, you're getting a current gen hardware wallet with a very unique offering that is not often seen in the world of hardware wallets. But first, the funny thing about the Keystone 3 Pro is kind of its name. You'd think for a device called the Keystone 3 Pro that there would be some base model like iPhone Pro and iPhone base model, but there's actually no such thing. And in fact, there's not even a Keystone 1. That's because the Keystone brand is actually an offshoot of the original Cobalt Vault hardware wallet, where the original development team branched away from the parent company in order to focus and dedicate their craft towards self-custodial tech. Self-custody for the win. But funky naming aside, this thing absolutely deserves its pro moniker, because using this thing made me feel like a damn pro surfing on chain. Let's start with one of the biggest security features about the Keystone that cannot be praised enough, and more hardware wallet manufacturers and providers should consider implementing. Whereas a ton of first generation and even current generation hardware wallets still rely on wired connections or a wireless Bluetooth connection, both are still vulnerable to attacks. Wired or cable connections, because you're creating a direct connection between your private keys to your laptop, which could be compromised or contain viruses or malware. And Bluetooth, because it's a complex, code-heavy stack that is challenging to do properly. In fact, one of the safest ways you can create a connection between your hardware wallet and your device, such as your laptop or your phone, is making sure the devices never come into contact with each other. This is called being fully air-gapped. Bluetooth would have solved the problem if it wasn't so complex to do securely, which leaves us with QR codes. For that, the Keystone 3 Pro comes with a built-in black and white camera. This little thing is used to scan QR codes generated by your hot wallet of choice like Rabby or MetaMask. And these QR codes are visual representations of codified transaction data, such as which contracts and functions you're interacting with, in what amounts, or what digital signature you are signing and authorizing. It's a clever way of fully air-gapping your private keys without having to rely on Bluetooth. And it's the single factor alone that makes Keystone such a worthy option for securing your private keys and your digital assets. Of course, fully air-gapping isn't going to do it on its own. So for that, we have to look at the silicone. Hardware wallets these days often go for a multi-silicone approach, allowing each chip to be dedicated to specific functions. The Keystone is no exception, featuring 4 chips, including 3 secure element chips and 1 MCU, which is a microcontroller unit that handles the basic functionalities of the device. Now, on the secure element side, there's the microchip ATEX608B and Maxim DS28S60 secure element chips, which work together to generate and protect your private keys and secret recovery seed phrases. Each chip generates part of the encryption key, so an attacker would need to compromise both chips and your password in order to extract your data. And then there's the Maxim Max 32520 secure element chip, which handles the fingerprint biometrics storage and authentication. And we'll get more into the fingerprints later in the video. Now, dedicated viewers might know that I reviewed the IronKey hardware wallet in my previous video. And if you're comparing chip pedigree alone, IronKey's Infineon chip has the bank and credit card chip card certifications. It's EAL 6+ certified. It's top tier stuff packed into one super chip. But Keystone takes a different but equally effective approach. Instead of one super chip, they use 3 separate secure elements, and an attacker would need to crack all 3 and your password simultaneously in order to do bad things. Now, even if an adversary were to get a hold of your Keystone 3 Pro and happen to possess Bond villain-esque specialized equipment, you can rest easy knowing that the Keystone uses PCI grade, which is payment cards industry grade, anti-tampering protection. You can imagine as if everything under the hood is housed and wrapped in complex circuitry that can detect when someone is physically trying to open the device. And if it detects an intrusion, it will automatically destroy itself along with the private keys and seed phrases within it. Crypto in nature is a tech stack that relies on free and open source software. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Aave, these are all open source projects that stands on the shoulders of each other. So critics often, and rightfully so, expect the same from their hardware wallet manufacturers. But of course, building open source physical devices can be tricky. How do you conduct a commercial enterprise if you're just giving everything away to competitors? In that respect, the Keystone does a better job than your average hardware wallet team. They are very, very open source, right down to the bill of materials and electrical schematics. Although they've kept the physical anti-tampering mechanism off the schematics for obvious security reasons. But otherwise, Keystone's application code is fully open source. But here's a catch. They also use an MH1903 microprocessor chip. And the way it interacts with the secure element chips, that's not fully open source, which means you can't actually verify what commands it's sending to those chips. But otherwise, Keystone does a stellar job of being open source representatives. A heck of a lot better than competitors like the Ledger, but still a ways away from Trezor Safe 7's fully open source model. One of the biggest critiques of Keystone is that they are a Hong Kong-based company, and their bill of materials shows a ton of components that are sourced and manufactured in China. For sovereignty-focused users, this raises a very important question. Could state actors compromise the supply chain during manufacturing? Could backdoors be inserted at the factory level? I think this is a fair question to ask. The ground truth is that the Keystone is not that unique here. Most hardware wallets do contain components that are manufactured and produced in China. A supply chain attack would need to compromise all 3 secure element chips, each made by a different manufacturer, without it being caught in Keystone's public security audits. The better question as a user is Chinese manufacturing a deal breaker for you? If so, then your options narrow across the entire hardware wallet market. But if you're evaluating Keystone's specific risk profile, the multi-chip architecture and the transparency of their public audits matters much more than where their parts are manufactured. Hardware wallets aren't static devices, and blockchains, they're a changing and dynamic thing, and new vulnerabilities do pop up. Skip updates long enough and you might just find yourself unable to use a brand new protocol, or worse, be vulnerable to exploits that might have been patched months ago. But here's the paradox. You just spent $150 on a device that is meant to keep your private keys fully air-gapped and away from internet-connected devices like your laptop. And now, to update the firmware, you're supposed to just plug in your USB-C cable back into that same computer? Doesn't that defeat the entire point? For that, the Keystone features a micro SD card slot that you can use to feed it cryptographically authenticated firmware updates. Otherwise, you can still rely on the good old USB-C cable connection into your laptop. Or if the Keystone works just fine out of the box, as they mention in their documentation, you're good to just keep using the device as is without updating the firmware. Now, if you've watched my previous review video on the IamKey hardware wallet, I detailed the practice of blind signing and how a lot of first-generation hardware wallets did a terrible job encouraging users to blind sign transactions. But the Keystone features a 4-inch touchscreen, which is tons of real estate to make sure as often as possible, users using the Keystone, they're clear signing their transactions. This means you can actually see in clear detail what contracts a user might be interacting with and how much an asset might be moving between addresses. For someone like me, coming over from first-generation hardware wallets, the Keystone's screen size is perfect. It's as if you're signing and approving a transaction directly on your phone, which this thing feels a lot like. Speaking of phones, the Keystone is roughly the size of an older smartphone from a bygone era. The caseback is mostly made of plastic, it's definitely got more of a quality build to it compared to the first generation hardware wallets. Again, it's kind of like a phone, but I wouldn't trust this thing being thrown around. But then again, who's throwing around hardware wallets? It's got a power button on the side for turning on and off the device, and as I mentioned previously, it's got a micro SD card slot for fully air-gapped firmware updates. It's got a USB-C charging port, and on the back, a built-in black and white camera for scanning QR codes, and underneath it, a tiny bezel for fingerprint authentication. The whole thing weighs about 103 grams, or about 3.5 ounces. So while yes, it's still relatively light, it's still not as slim as some of the other hardware wallets, like the IamKey, which is about the thinness of about 2 credit cards, or the Trezor 7, which is a lot tinier compared to this thing. Oh, and the touchscreen, it's very prone to scratches, so you'll have to manage that carefully. All in all, just like any other hardware wallet, I wouldn't advise anyone to carry it around publicly. But if you had to, this thing easily fits inside your pants back pocket or your backpack. And if you really had to use it in public, this thing could easily come across as if you're using a phone. No one would bat an eye, and that's kind of nice as an unintentional security feature. But the plastic encasing, the bulky form factor, that can all be forgiven because of just how usable this thing is. If you've never used a fully air-gapped hardware wallet before, well, I'd like to welcome you to the friendly future, where transactions are authorized and signed for by scanning a QR code. No more cables, no more vulnerable Bluetooth connections. You just connect to your Keystone via Rabi or MetaMask. You go to any dApp that you want to interact with, say like a CowSwap or ENS names. And when prompted, you go through the flow of first scanning the QR code that's generated by Rabi or MetaMask using the built-in camera on your Keystone, and then doing the reverse, where Keystone will generate a QR code and then you'll get your laptop or your phone to scan that QR code. It's a beautifully simple and elegant experience. And the fact that you can do so seamlessly for both your phone and your computer opens up limitless options for you to bust out your hardware wallet whenever, just to make a portfolio adjusting transaction. Listen, after experiencing using QR codes and fully air-gapped transacting, I really don't think I can ever go back. It's that good. And the best part is, it's that secure. No wireless stack vulnerabilities, no malware jumping through USB connections and into your hardware wallet. Just visual data that never creates a live connection between devices. The Keystone itself features a 4-inch touchscreen, which runs on a potatoey 480 by 800 pixels resolution. But listen, I'm not using this like a phone. I need this thing to secure my assets, and I need to make sure I can clear sign for my transaction. So the resolution, it matters very little to me. What does matter is that I've noticed the touchscreen can be finicky at times. For example, if I'm trying to unlock the Keystone with my PIN code, sometimes my button presses on screen can register as a different button or not register at all, which can be quite annoying, especially when I'm trying to unlock the device after turning it on for the first time. And it's important to note that after 12 unsuccessful attempts with the PIN code, then the device will wipe the data. You'll have to set up the wallet again. But in practice, I found myself using the fingerprint sensor 98% of the time to avoid the touchscreen frustration. Which leads me to thank you, Keystone, for adding in the fingerprint scanning hardware, which can stand in for using a pattern unlock or a PIN code or a password unlock. And again, just this small touch adds such a usable feel to the entire Keystone experience. You're barely having to tap on the touchscreen at all during a transaction flow, and the fingerprint scanning offers seamless transition from transaction to transaction. I will say though, the fingerprint scanning occasionally can also be a little bit finicky, so you might have to go for a few taps on the scanner before the hardware will register your fingerprint. A hardware wallet is only as useful as the apps and the chains it supports. Some hardware wallets, they excel at Bitcoin and then kind of fumble everything else. Others nail the Ethereum experience, but then ignore emerging layer ones. And if your hot wallet of choice does not support your hardware wallet or QR code protocols, then you're kind of stuck. Keystone plays nice with the entire multi-chain ecosystem. MetaMask, Rabi, Sparrow, Kepler, Electrum, pretty much every major hot wallet provider supports Keystone and their QR code protocol. So that means Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Aptos, Sui, Cardano, you're covered. You're not locked into one ecosystem or workflow. The result? Whether you're a Bitcoin maxi using Sparrow, or you're an Ethereum degen using Rabi, or you're an NFT collector on Phantom, Keystone slots right in. Here's my favorite part. With wrench attacks becoming more and more commonplace, hardware wallet teams are having to design for this attack vector in order to protect their users. The conventional and just as legitimate method is to allow users to add in a 25th word to their 24-word secret recovery seed phrase, or 13 words if you're using a 12-word seed phrase. This gives the user the ability to unlock two different address sets, one without the passcode and another with the passcode. Keystone offers something a little bit more unique, where it can support up to 3 different secret recovery seed phrases stored on the device. So you can use 3 different PIN codes to unlock 3 totally different address sets. If you enter in one PIN code, you might get your real addresses, and if you unlock with another PIN code, you might get a bunch of decoy addresses, and then with your 3rd PIN code, you might unlock something else. This sort of UX is brilliant. And I'm actually not sure if other hardware wallet teams have done something like this before, so if anyone watching knows, please feel free to drop a comment and let me know. But regardless, it's a unique little twist on wrench attack protection, and I'm all for it. Unlike the Ledger or Trezor, which sits dead until it's plugged in, the Keystone features a 1000 mAh lithium-ion battery. It's meant to be wireless, cable-free, and always ready. But in my testing, the battery performance has been a little bit disappointing. Heavy use of it drains it really, really fast. And worse, if you keep the device powered on, idle, and sitting on a shelf, the battery dies after about 6 to 7 days. Which means if you're a buy and hold investor who only transacts monthly, you might find yourself a dead Keystone when you actually need it. I'd treat it more like your phone and charge it regularly. Keep your USB-C cable around it and top it off after each use. Or leave it plugged in between sessions if you're transacting with it regularly. For me, what I found works best is I just turn off the device when I'm not using it, and I find that the battery lasts a little longer. It's not a deal breaker, but it does mean the Keystone isn't a true set it and forget it device. You need to actively manage it as a powered device, not a passive cold storage tool. So in summary, the Keystone, it's super friendly. It's fully air-gapped, which means it's secure. And it's friendly to mobile and computers. It's got clear signing thanks to its 4-inch screen. It's got a relatively good open source ethos. It's affordable in my opinion, and it's got multi-seed phrase support. But on the downside, it does have the China manufacturing ties. It's built well, but I still wouldn't trust to throw this thing around willy-nilly. And the battery definitely sucks. It's got a finicky touchscreen, and yeah, it's definitely a bulkier form factor compared to other hardware wallets. So to get to the answer y'all came here looking for, should you buy the Keystone 3 Pro? I'll be honest, at $150, you're not just buying a hardware wallet. You're buying into a specific design philosophy. That's not for everyone, but my verdict, for newcomers or users migrating over from first generation hardware wallets, the Keystone 3 Pro is one of the best air-gapped experiences you can find on the market today. For seasoned users with recent hardware, the Keystone, that's kind of optional. But if you're curious about QR code workflows and want to test the multi-seed phrase philosophy, $150 is not bad for some exploration. But personally speaking, I loved testing the Keystone. It's so usable, you'll find yourself wanting a reason to do stuff in crypto, just so you can feel the magic of air-gapped transacting with a device that's had a lot of thought and design put into it. So there you go, folks. The Keystone is such a usable, delectable, fully air-gapped solution that you really can trust to secure your digital assets. And if you're seriously considering buying the Keystone 3 Pro, please make sure you buy it only from the official website. Don't get it from third-party resellers and vendors because supply chain attacks are real. One more thing before you click that buy link, please consider clicking on my Keystone affiliate link in the video description below. It costs you nothing extra. It supports my channel and all the content that I've been building. And most importantly, it keeps you safe. But are Bluetooth connections for hardware wallets really that bad? What if there was a Bluetooth native hardware wallet that uses the state-of-the-art security chips found in your passports? You'll want to check out my next video reviewing IAMToken's IAMKey hardware wallet and how that might stack up against the Keystone 3 Pro. That's it for now. Peace.